Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1988 film The Carrier, and this review is for Salty Essentials, a subscriber to my channel. Thank you, Salty Essentials, for choosing this, because this is a so bad it's good film. Like, if you watch this film for the first time and you don't know anything going into it, I guarantee you're going to be like, what the hell? Like, what is going on with this film? Terrible acting. It looks okay. I mean, it's shot competently, in my opinion. There isn't like bad directing, bad cinematography or anything, but the script is ridiculous. The dialogue is terrible. Like, it's just like, I'll talk more about everything, obviously, because this is a review, but, you know. This was written and directed by Nathan J. White, who was the executive producer for the film Hellmaster with John Saxon, which, if you have not seen Hellmaster, highly recommend if you like so bad it's good films. I mean, first of all, John Saxon. Second of all, it's ridiculous, it's stupid, but it's a fun ridiculous and stupid, just like The Carrier, so check it out. It is foreshadowing in this film that people are partying in a building next to a graveyard. Oh, by the way, I have no, like, behind-the-scenes, like, extra information about this, because it's just not there, because it's such a crappy movie, to be honest. But yes, foreshadowing early on, probably not intentional, that all the people having this party in town are doing it right next to a graveyard. Well, maybe it was intentional. I don't know. Put it in the comments. Do you think it was intentional or do you think it was not intentional that they did that? Because, like I said, it looks good enough. So, like, maybe there was some real, ability there. I don't know. But it was interesting foreshadowing nonetheless. People in town really did not like that Jake kid because they believed he killed his parents, but then in the end, he found out that it was actually one of his bullies that had lit the fire. They basically, like, forced him to drink, because you get the idea that he's just been bullied his, like, entire life. They force alcohol down his throat. He passes out from it, can't remember anything, and then they just tell him that the fire that they lit with his house and killed his parents, he did. They just tell him he did that. So then he just ends up, like, accepting it, basically, and being like, well, I don't remember anything, and everyone tells me this is what's up. So there was already hatred for him, you get the idea, and then now, because they're all like, oh, he's a murderer, he killed his parents, then it's even worse for him. So, I mean, a good setup to isolate that one character, but the problem is you don't stick with that character the whole time, and you don't really get people to really connect with that character so much, mainly just because it's a bad film. Things are just done very poorly. The thing that ends up attacking Jake early on when he's in his little, like, shed house, I guess is that, like, some sort of, like, werewolf type thing? I don't know. Like, it came out of nowhere. It's not explained. And then I believe he shoots it, and then it falls down once it's outside because it, like, broke through his wall, and then it starts, like, smoking. So my guess from the fact that it was smoking then after it got shot is that it scratching him because it gets his chest, that's what made him start to become the carrier of this plague, this disease. I'm just going to call it a disease, I guess. I'll just call it a disease. So that's my guess on it. I don't know. Do you have other guesses? Like, because the stuff's not really explained, but put it in the comments. But that was out of nowhere. Like, literally, this thing just comes out of nowhere. They don't say what it is. It's hard to see what it was. Like, it just looked like some big furry thing. I don't know. Was it Sasquatch? Could have been Sasquatch. I don't know. The storm impact sets the stage for people being trapped in their area. They talk about how, like, the bridge is, like, underwater or something like that. Something to that effect. Where they basically say that, like, power, problem with the power, and basically we can't get out of here, in essence. So it's a good setup to kind of, like, know that this place is isolated. So when things start going crazy, people start melting from this disease, there's not much of any place to go. So it kind of, like, forces them together to deal with this. Makes them more desperate, too. The stop-motion spider that burns on the skillet is a kind of odd moment, because you're like, well, what is going on? It makes more sense as the film continues to go on, because Jake touched the skillet, then the spider got on the skillet, and now it's, like, infected. So that's why it, like, sizzled up. But it kind of, like, comes out of nowhere, and I was just like, what is going on? Because the only thing we'd seen Smoking prior to that was whatever attacked Jake, but that whole scene was just confusing. So you're just like, I don't really understand what's going on. But the stop motion also looked weird. I think that was the only part that had that. The part with the one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish book burning Old Man Patrick's hand off is pretty funny. They get into the ridiculous, absurd, and, so bad it's good very early. They hit it. They hit the ground running in that respect. And it's just so funny, like, it's, like, stuck to the stump of his hand, and it's just, like, it's continuing to go. Like, it's still stuck to him, but it keeps burning, and it's going to, like, take his entire arm. I think he ends up with, like, a whole arm amputated, and then, like, he touched it with his other hand, so, like, they take his hand off then, too, to, like, save him. But, yeah, that was wild. And then he's, like, running into town and, like, touching all these things and, like, flailing around with this book stuck to his stump. Pretty funny, pretty wild. And I think, like, that's the moment for sure that you're like, oh, I get what type of film this is. It's terrible. Walking around town putting chicks on everything is beyond absurd. I mean, just watching that play out, where they take those little, baby chicks, not women, they take those little chicks around and they're just, like, putting them on things to see if they melt. Because I guess it has to be obviously a living thing in order for them to know if whatever object it is they're testing is infected. But it's just like a funny scene, especially where Dr. King's walking around. He's just like touching these chicks on things. Are these townfolk pissed off at everything and everyone? Because they are absurd when it comes to how they were yelling at Dr. King when he's trying to, like, give them information for potentially what's going on. Unfortunately, that, and this film in general, in a way, in a very exaggerated way, kind of mirrors what we've been through with the COVID pandemic. You do have that segment of people who are going to be ridiculous and just shout down people who are actually trying to help. You're always going to have those types of people. And then you're also going to have those people who just go overboard with panicking and they start, like, going off the rails, just like everyone in this town does, and that's how you end up with this war that happens between these two factions over cats, which I'll be talking more about the cats thing. It's like my favorite thing in the film, to be honest. Dr. King's speech is all over the place. I honestly would be confused if I was someone listening to that. I would be letting him speak because we need, he's the expert apparently on this, and we need to know what's going on, but he was all over the place. Like, it was hard to understand, like, what his point is. And this kind of gets to, like, something in general with the film. The dialogue is so horribly written. A lot of the times it's, like, very choppy. And it doesn't even necessarily make sense. Like, the flow of the dialogue. It's just, like, word salad at times. And that happens with King's speech. Funny how the one guy starts melting while he's in the outhouse. That's really not how you want to go. You don't want to go while you're going, if you know what I mean. And I think you do. That just kind of, it hit me as something relatively funny. Prior to that, the only thing I'd seen bad happening as far as an outhouse goes was in the movie Mosquito, where the guy goes in there and there's that giant mosquito on the roof of it. So maybe we need more of these in peril while in outhouse scenes in films. Let's do it. The assault and tree causing the body to melt was confusing. The one where the woman was assaulted by the guy and she ends up touching the tree and then they melt. And I was just like, wait a second. Like, I guess the tree was infected and she somehow knew this and then she became infected and then he melted and that was her way to, like, take them both out because she wanted revenge on him because of what he was doing, which is obviously really messed up. But yeah, it was a confusing scene because I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. And how would she know to touch the tree? Like, or maybe it was just like on a whim. She's just like, I'm going to try this. Seeing people wrap themselves in garbage bags and cling wrap is pretty great. I just can't take anything seriously with these people looking like this. Which is fine. Because like I said, the film's not good. Like, the dialogue's horrible. It's very choppy. And so, just gave me a little something extra to laugh at. And I'm sure everyone else appreciated it. One thing, though, is it's hard to tell what character, like, who's who with this, unless you really pay attention to the voices before they, don all their garbage bags and whatnot, because their faces are covered typically too. So it's like, I don't even know which character is which person. Like, it's just, okay, just going with it. Gotta love the scene of the squirrel frying on the tree branch when Jake touches the tree. That was right after he had, like, buried that rock that he touched. I guess to try and figure out if he was actually infected. But that was kind of funny. Like, they just kind of, like, pan up real quick and you see, like, this, like, trembling furry thing and, like, smoke coming off. Kind of funny. Which, by the way, how much smoke did they use in this? So many smoking moments. Real quick, pause for horror hydration. All this talk about this stuff is just, ooh. Here's a quote. "We should just do nothing and pray." What a quote. It shows the brand of religion in that town is quite misleading. And oftentimes you actually do have a small group of people within society who are like that. How they're like, well, let's just do nothing and pray about it. So, maybe this was an intentional piece of dialogue that was kind of supposed to point at a problem within society, that people in those situations just want to, like, put their heads in the sand and just be like, well, God will take care of everything. We'll be fine. Which obviously, it's not going to do anything, especially in this instance. The whole gang standoff centered around catching cats is really out there and pretty funny. I loved it. One of my favorite moments of the film, like when everyone's going around, they're trying to hoard these cats, and they see other people getting them, and they're like, share some of those cats with us. And then, like, they literally start fighting over it, and you're just like, wow, this is so funny. Like, I could understand, like, it wouldn't be absurd and it wouldn't be ridiculous as much if it was some sort of, like, resource or something, like iron ore or, like, gold or, something like that. But the fact that it's cats just makes it that much more ridiculous and absurd, and you're just like, never thought I would experience a movie like this. I never did, but I'm glad I experienced it. Thank you, Salty Essentials. Why did that dude steal someone's mailbox? The movie's so random. There's literally this one scene, I don't know if you remember it or not, if you watched it, where a dude's just stealing another guy's mailbox. I think the guy who's running after him, whose mailbox it was even, like, yelling, asking him, like, why are you taking my mailbox? That's what I was thinking. I was just like, this film's random. But I like that. I like the randomness. Because if it's bad, just go all the way, man. Just start being crazy. The kid who almost got stabbed is one cold dude. Or one cold dude. Not cool dude. Cold dude. He was not at all afraid to die. But his friend even ended up saving him, though, when they took that tree branch and just, like, threw it on those people and started melting them. But that kid... And he's involved later on as well. Like, he's probably my favorite character from the entire film because he's way more grown up and, like I said, like, such a cold person. He's not afraid of anything. And it's just funny because you don't get characters like that who act like that who are that young. It just plays out in a really funny way. People really should try to leave, but they seem determined to just stay and defend what little they have left in life. I know that they kind of set it up where, like, the storm made it so it's harder to get out of there, but you have to try. Like, nobody tries to leave. Everyone's just like, we're going to stay and protect what we have. But the thing is, they should have at least tried to leave because everything there is potentially infected. And if you go to another town, then everything there is most likely not infected. Or at least you got to find out. Like, that there's a lot of stuff infected where you are. So get out of there. It just didn't make sense that no one wanted to leave. But hey, it's a bad movie. Somewhat okay reveal that Jake's bully actually was the one who started the fire that killed his parents. I thought that was an interesting twist to it. Very minor, but they did it in a decent enough way where he's, like, eavesdropping and the guy's bragging about it, which I really don't understand why he would do that, but hey, whatever. Another quote coming for you. If they weren't hoarding cats, your loved ones would be alive today. Just out of context, that's an awesome quote. I said awesome quote when Jake tries to rile everyone up about the Joneses and their fortress. That guy, the leader of the other group, the faction, he's just like, yeah, if it wasn't for them hoarding all these cats, your loved ones would be alive today. It's like, that is... I read that quote to my wife out of context, and she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's the type of movie this is. Gotta love how they tape an axe to old man Patrick's stump where his hand was. I thought that was really funny. Love that scene. They're just like wrapping the tape around, and I'm like, that's a pretty heavy looking axe too. Like, I don't know if the tape would really hold it, to be honest, because it would be too heavy potentially. Just saying. I can't tell who is who in this film because everyone's face is covered and they don't use each other's names. That's another point. Not only can you not see who it is, but they don't call each other by name either. Well, maybe part of the reason for that is they don't know who each other are necessarily because they can't see any faces. But they would know, voices, because you get the idea this is a small insular town. So, another good quote. Is it cats or is it death? Love that quote. That was the quote that was being yelled before the war really starts, where the guy's like, give us some of the cats and we'll just leave you alone. He's like, is it cats or is it death? And I was like, oh man, they just keep coming. Like, the hits keep coming with this. It really, it's special. The war scene is over the top, but the best is when they start using the red objects. Love that, where they're like, get the red object, and people are like literally taking the red objects, which are the things that they mark with red to be like, these are infected. Like, literally a guy just puts like a coil of rope on someone's chest and they start like melting. I was like, dude, it's too funny. And then they're like throwing things in the house so that people try and touch them. Like branches and stuff. Is something. Treva doesn't actually seem all that upset with Jake for getting the whole town to go to war. He literally like admits to her that he intentionally got them to start killing each other. And she's just like, why'd you do that? She wasn't that concerned about it. I'm like... Not good characters, obviously. Like, very poorly written, to be honest. Dr. King tries to get medical attention for wounded people, and everyone else is just fueled by bloodlust. People just keep saying, we want to know who it is. We want to know who the carrier is. Not concerned at all with getting help for anyone who's wounded, even people from their own faction at this point. So it just tells you how gone these people are mentally with panic and ridiculous bloodlust. I had a feeling that Dr. King wouldn't end up giving up Jake to the mob, but it doesn't end up really mattering anyway because they have that whole scene where the baby crawls over to Jake. For some frickin' reason, he picks the kid up. I don't understand. He would have seen the kid crawling towards him. He could have just moved away. Like, excuse yourself, go outside, something, But he picks the baby up and then he won't give it back because it's starting to melt. And it's like, he did this to himself, really. I mean, Dr. King was trying to protect him. And then that's when things get crazy again. And then I love the scene of all the cats that get stuck on the wall after everyone's yelling, touch the wall, Jake. Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. It is great that as he runs away from the mob, Jake keeps touching things to kind of leave traps behind him. I like that touch. I love that. I was like, that's smart. That's like what you would do in this instance for sure. I especially like, what did he do? He picked something up that was like on the ground in the alleyway and then like threw it over top of him and it touched someone. And then there was like, eh. And then the woman whose hair like got stuck because it was burning on that branch. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Did we need the whole thing with Treva narrating stuff, especially at the end of the film, like wrapping things up? Like, we don't even need that. She talks in the beginning of the film, she talks at the end of the film in voiceover. Didn't need it. Just didn't need it. The flow of the film. Now I'm infected. The flow of the film is pretty choppy. It is pretty choppy, and part of that being the issue with the dialogue. It makes no sense a lot of times. I'd like to show people clips of this film without context and watch them say, what the hell? Like, constantly. Because you would, if you see this without anyone prepping you. Just saying. As absurd as the film is, if you take a step back and you kind of look at it, it portrays panic and the decline of society in times of crisis. Which, like I said, we got degrees of that with the pandemic. And, that stuff will kind of always happen. You'll always have these people who just go to extremes, who lose it, who don't cope with things very well and don't approach things from a logical standpoint. Obviously, Dr. King, is the only person who's trying to approach things from a logical standpoint. But, you know, no one wants to listen to him anyway. So, anyway, that's all I have to say about The Carrier. Like I said, thank you, Salty Essentials. This was fun. Glad to have seen it, because otherwise I would never even know about this film, to be honest. Would love to hear your comments about it. Go ahead and put them down in the comments section. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell button if you haven't already, because that is how you can repay me if you like this video or any video I've ever done. It is quick, painless, costs you no money, and I greatly appreciate it. Regardless, though, thanks for taking your time to watch this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.